the marketplace, and the secret. The Aurion Prime space station hung in orbit above a shining blue planet. Its giant silver rings glowed in the sunlight, and thousands of ships came and went each day. Inside its main dome was the largest galactic marketplace in the sector. Here, merchants from 100 worlds sold everything from rare crystals to living flowers. The air was filled with the smell of alien spices, the hum of translation devices, and the chatter of countless languages. In the middle of the crowded marketplace, a figure moved slowly through the crowd. Heads turned, voices whispered, and some people looked away. It was Gorrak, the alien many called the ugliest in the galaxy. His skin was rough and jagged like cracked stone. One of his eyes was bright gold, the other pale gray and cloudy. A deep scar ran from his forehead down to his jaw. His arms and legs were uneven in length, giving his movements a strange, uneven rhythm. Even his voice, when he spoke, was low and rough, like rocks grinding together. Some merchants muttered insults under their breath. A group of young alien children peeked from behind a stall and then ran away. Giggling nervously, a human trader whispered to his friend, "That's him, the war freak from Drawbacks. I heard he scares babies just by walking past." But Gorrak ignored them. He carried something in both hands, a small, sealed container, made of black metal and covered in strange markings. It looked heavy, but he held it with great care. Captain Aelora Voss, a human explorer with sharp eyes and a curious mind, was standing at a fruit stall when she saw him. She had heard of Gorrak before. The stories painted him as dangerous, cursed, and cruel, but there was something in the way he moved that didn't match the stories. He walked with purpose, not anger, and his eyes, mismatched as they were, carried a weight of sadness rather than hate. Aelora watched as Gorrak stopped at a small booth run by a hooded alien merchant. They exchanged a few quiet words. The merchant handed him a small crystal disc, and Gorrak placed it in a pouch at his side. Then, without looking around, he continued toward the transport docks. Aelora's curiosity sparked. She paid for her fruit quickly and began to follow him at a safe distance. Through the noise and movement of the marketplace, she kept her eyes on the jagged figure ahead. He didn't seem to notice her, but every so often, he glanced over his shoulder as if making sure no one else was watching. Whispers followed him through the market. "Why doesn't he just hide in the outer colonies?" someone muttered. "Because he's too stubborn to die quietly." Another replied, but Aelora noticed something else in the crowd. There were a few who gave him respectful nods. Old soldiers, traders from war-torn systems. It was as if they knew something the rest of the galaxy didn't. Gorrak reached the edge of the marketplace, where the noise faded into the hum of the docking bays. He approached a small, worn-out shuttle, the kind of ship no one would look at twice before boarding. He glanced around one last time. His gaze passed over Aelora without stopping, but she was sure he had seen her. As the shuttle doors closed, Aelora made a quick decision. She booked passage on the same route. She didn't know where he was going, but she had a feeling it wasn't an ordinary trip. The journey took them far from the bright core worlds. Through the shuttle's small windows, Aelora saw the stars grow sharper and the space around them grow darker. They passed unmarked sectors, old battlefields, and asteroid fields that had long been abandoned. Finally, the shuttle descended toward a planet half covered in shadows. Its surface was broken by massive canyons and ancient ruins. When they landed, the few passengers stepped off quickly, eager to finish their business. Gorrak moved in the opposite direction, away from the trading outpost, toward the distant ruins. Aelora followed him quietly, keeping her distance. The air was dry and thin, carrying the faint smell of dust and old stone. The ruins rose from the ground like the bones of a long-dead giant. Tall pillars carved with strange symbols stretched toward the pale sky. Gorrak stopped at the base of a massive archway. From his pouch, he took the crystal disc he had bought in the marketplace. He pressed it into a slot on the arch, and with a low hum, the stone began to shift. Before Aelora's eyes, a hidden door opened in the ground, revealing a staircase that spiraled downward. Gorrak stepped inside without hesitation. For a moment, Aelora hesitated. This was clearly something secret, maybe even forbidden, but her curiosity was stronger than her fear. She followed him down into the darkness. The stairs led to a vast, underground chamber. In the center stood an ancient device, a circular frame filled with a shimmering, liquid-like light. Its glow reflected off the jagged lines of Gorrak's face, making his scars seem even deeper. Aelora had never seen anything like it, but she could feel its power in the air. It was like standing near the edge of a storm. Gorrak set the sealed container on the ground and opened it. Inside was a crystal shard, glowing faintly. He placed it into a slot on the side of the device, and the light inside the frame began to swirl faster. The whole chamber seemed to tremble. Aelora's breath caught. Whatever was about to happen, it was something the galaxy would never forget. The truth beneath the surface. The air in the underground chamber was heavy. Faint blue light from the ancient device danced across the walls. Aelora stepped quietly down the last stair, staying in the shadows. Gorrak was focused on the swirling light in front of him, his rough hands steady as he adjusted the crystal shard. Strange symbols appeared in the air above the frame, floating like glowing smoke. Aelora had seen alien tech before, but this felt older, more alive. It was as if the machine was breathing. She took a slow step closer, her boots making the faintest sound on the stone floor. Without turning his head, Gorrak spoke. "You've been following me since Aurion Prime." Aelora froze. "You knew?" she asked. "I always know," he said. His voice was deep, but calmer than she expected. "If you came here to stop me, you're too late." "I'm not here to stop you," she said, stepping into the light. "I just want to know what this is, and why everyone says you're dangerous." Gorrak finally turned to face her, up close. His jagged skin and mismatched eyes were even more striking, but there was no hatred in his gaze, only a tired sadness. "This," he said, gesturing to the device, "is the Prism of Aelora. It was made by an ancient race, long before any of our people could cross the stars. They believed it could show the true self of any living being, strip away the lies, the scars, even the shape you were born with." Aelora's eyes widened. "You mean it changes you?" Gorrak nodded slowly. "Yes, but not like the machines you know. It does not simply rebuild your body, it shows the universe what you really are." Aelora glanced at the scars across his face. "And that's what you want, to be beautiful." For a moment Gorrak didn't answer, then he let out a slow breath. "When I was young, I was a soldier," he said. "I fought in the War of Dravaks. We were defending a colony of farmers from an invasion. During the last battle, the enemy used a bioweapon, a living gas that burned skin, twisted bone, and poisoned the blood." He looked away, his golden eye catching the light. "I stayed behind to hold the line while the civilians escaped. When they found me later, I was still alive, but changed. The medics saved my life, but they could not undo the damage. My people, they looked at me and saw only a monster." Aelora felt a tightness in her chest. "So you've been living with that ever since?" she said. "Yes," he replied. "But it is not only about my face. The war ended, but the hatred remained. Everywhere I go, I am the story parents tell their children to keep them from wandering at night." He stepped closer to the prism, the swirling light painting his skin in shifting colors. "I found records of this device years ago, hidden in a smuggler's archive. It took me half my life to find it, and now, here it is." Aelora's eyes stayed on the shimmering circle. "What will it cost?" she asked. Gorrak's voice grew quieter. "It is said the prism does not give beauty for free. It takes something from you, something only it can see." The light in the device shifted, growing warmer. The symbols above it began to spin. Slowly, Gorrak reached for the sealed container again and took out another shard. "This is the key crystal," he said. "It will awaken the prism fully. Once I step inside, there is no turning back." Aelora stepped forward. "You're sure you want this? Once it changes you, you might not be the same person." Gorrak's eyes met hers. "That's the point," he said simply. Then, softer, "But if I can finally walk into a room without children hiding from me, maybe that's worth it." He placed the key crystal into a slot at the base of the frame. The prism flared, filling the chamber with golden light. A deep hum vibrated through the floor. Aelora felt the air grow warmer, almost alive. The frame's liquid surface rippled like water in a breeze. Gorrak stepped toward it, but before entering, he looked at her one last time. "If I do not return, tell them I tried to be more than what the war made me." Aelora opened her mouth to speak, but no words came. She just nodded. He stepped into the light. The surface of the prism swallowed him, and for a moment he was gone. Then the entire chamber shook. The symbols above the frame spun faster and faster. The light shifted from gold to pure white, and a shape began to emerge from the glow. Aelora's breath caught as she realized whatever came out would not be the same Gorrak who went in. The hum grew louder, echoing in her bones, and the transformation began. The transformation and the truth. The prism's light filled the entire chamber. Aelora raised her arm to shield her eyes, but the glow still pressed through, warm and strange. She could hear the low hum turning into a deep, almost musical tone. It was like the sound of a heartbeat, slow but powerful, echoing through the stone walls. The swirling surface rippled violently. A silhouette appeared inside, growing sharper with each moment. It was Gorrak, but his jagged form seemed to blur. The rough edges of his skin smoothed, his uneven limbs straightened. His mismatched eyes glowed faintly in the shifting light. Then, with a final wave of brilliance, the prism released him. Gorrak stepped forward, and Aelora's breath caught. The scars were gone. His skin, once rough and cracked, was now smooth and faintly luminous. Both eyes matched, glowing gold like molten metal. His stance was tall, strong, balanced. The alien who had once been avoided and mocked now looked like a figure carved by the finest hands in the galaxy. Aelora was silent for a long moment. You're, she began. Different, Gorrak finished with a faint smile. His voice was the same deep rumble, but it carried a calm strength now. I feel lighter, he said slowly, as if testing the words. She stepped closer, studying his face. It's not just your body, she said quietly. You feel different, as if the air around you has changed. Gorrak nodded. That is the prism's way. It does not only change what others see, it changes how they feel when they see you. They climbed the stairs back to the surface. The pale sky seemed brighter than before. At the edge of the ruins, a small group of locals waited, traders, scavengers, and a few guards who had been watching the sight from afar. When Gorrak appeared, they froze. One of the guards stepped forward, blinking, in confusion. Who are you? He asked. Gorrak didn't answer right away. He simply looked at them, and something shifted in their expressions. Where there had been suspicion, there was now quiet respect. Word spread quickly through the settlement. By evening, the marketplace was buzzing with rumors. Some said a great leader had come to the planet. Others whispered about a warrior from old stories returned to life. No one spoke of the ugliest alien anymore. But as the sun set, Gorrak's expression grew distant. Aelora noticed and stepped beside him. What's wrong? You got what you wanted, she said. He looked at her, his golden eyes steady. I thought beauty would make me free, he said softly. But now I see, it only changes how others treat me. It doesn't change what I must do. What do you mean? She asked. The galaxy is still full of those judged for what they look like. I was one of them, and I know the weight they carry. If I keep this gift for myself, then I am no better than those who turned away from me before. Aelora understood. You want to help them, she said. Yes, he replied. The prism can only work for one at a time, and it takes years to recharge. But there are other ways I can speak for them, defend them, make them seen. The next morning, they left the planet together. Gorrak didn't return to the crowded core worlds or the polished halls of the Alliance. Instead, he traveled to the forgotten colonies, the outer settlements, and the stations where no leaders visited. Everywhere he went, people looked at him with awe. Not just because of his beauty, but because he listened. He stood in the streets and markets where the overlooked lived. He told them his story, how he had been judged, hated, and cast aside, and how he had learned that worth was never truly about the face one wore. Months passed, and his name began to change in the galaxy's whispers. He was no longer Gorrak the Ugly. He became known as Gorrak the Guardian, a figure who could inspire hope just by standing among the people. One night, as their ship drifted between the stars, Aelora asked him, if you could undo what the prism gave you, would you? Gorrak looked out at the endless darkness. Yes, he said after a pause, because the prism showed me my beauty, but the galaxy needs to learn to see beauty without it. Aelora smiled faintly. Then maybe one day, it will. The ship moved on into the deep night of space, and somewhere far below, on worlds lit by strange suns, the story of the ugliest alien who became the most beautiful, and then something greater, continued to spread. Not as a tale of magic, but as a reminder that sometimes the real change is not in the face, but in the heart.